I know there's a sea of art supplies out there, but I found myself coming back to specifically a few of them. And in this video, I'll show you the why and how. I will cover different mediums such as for drawing and painting, and there are a few general items I don't want to miss anymore. And you can use the chapters to jump to the different sections. A small disclaimer, these are materials which I find useful. You're welcome to disagree, but ideally, maybe you haven't tried one or two of these and it can give you some inspiration. And every material is linked in the description if you want to check it out. Alright, let's go. I'm starting with the medium I'm most familiar with, which is graphite drawing. And although this might not be a mind-blowing, crazy material, I have to say toned paper is something I now prefer over white paper. I like the Strathmore options, and I have both toned gray and toned tan. I use both depending if I want a darker, cool middle tone or I feel more like a warm one. The reason why I like toned paper so much is because you can work both ways, the dark and light. With white paper, you have to build up all the values and strategically leave the brightest parts untouched, since that part is the white of the paper. But with toned paper, you can have a bit more flexibility to work with the lighter values, and that's where my next favorite tool comes in play. White charcoal might be my favorite material out of all of them. Using white charcoal or white Conté on toned paper brings your drawing to life. It makes your highlights pop, and when used carefully, you can build up a great light value for portraits or whatever it is you like to draw. It adds so much to the contrast, which gives you something a drawing on white paper just can't. If you never tried it, I can highly recommend it, and a tip I have is to experiment with different levels of pressure. As for the blending, you can easily go for it with some blending stumps. It's super easy, and blending the white into the toned paper gives you a really nice transition. Since we're just talking about highlights and the light values you're drawing, my next supply changed a lot of things for me, and I'm kind of shocked I never used it before. It's a pencil eraser. And I'm not talking about a pen eraser, which I also use a lot, but a pencil eraser is basically a more gentle and precise option for you to take away graphite. These pencil erasers are now a permanent member of my art supply party because they allow me to lift up graphite more flexible. I can use low pressure to light up areas without leaving a harsh edge, something I find hard to control when using kneaded erasers. And since you can sharpen these pencils, you have a high precision tool to bring back highlights and lighter parts. Before we continue, I just want to mention that I have an online shop where I sell some of my originals and lots of fine art clay prints to choose from. This content I upload is only possible with your support, and the best way to support an artist is, of course, to buy their art. So I'd highly appreciate it if you check out my website, and who knows, you might find something which fits exactly into your home. And again, thank you for all your support. Now back to the video. Keyword sharpening. I basically ditched all my sharpeners because I am now using a knife and sandpaper, and I'm not looking back. It might seem tedious, or at least that's the way I saw it back then, to grab a knife and carve away the wood on pencils carefully to expose the lead. Now I see it as kind of a meditational part before the art making process. Sure, it's easy to plop a pencil into a sharpener, just turn a few times and you have a somewhat pointy tip, but sharpening the lead with sandpaper has so many more advantages. First of all, you can control the level of pointiness, you can control the shape of your lead depending how you work, and you have more flexibility with drawing angles. And once you shaved your pencil, it's not that much of a work to rub it against sandpaper in between. Sure, it's a bit messy, but I found this method way more professional in the long run. I do this with basically every pencil I use, graphite, white charcoal, and especially with pastel pencils. This is a lot safer for the lead. You have to be really careful with the knife, but once you exposed enough, using sandpaper instead of a sharpener will make your pastel pencils break way less. My last item in the graphite drawing category refers to blending. I mention it all the time, and it's makeup brushes. They're soft and fluffy, so it makes absolute sense to try them out for blending. My favorite in the set is this eyeshadow brush because it's so short and more firm. You can nicely drag the graphite into other areas. I find makeup brushes to be a great addition to blending stems since these can leave harsh marks and you have to be very gentle with them. You can also use other different brushes, but I find makeup brushes so great because they have these big fluffy ones with a lot of volume. Moving on, but still staying in the field of drawing, I explored the joys and struggles of pastel pencils this year. They're super vibrant and are amazing with blending, and I seem to have found the perfect paper to use them on, and it is pastel matte paper. I love this paper for pastel pencils. It has this amazingly soft tooth and the pigments can really grip onto the surface. They have a big variety of colors to choose from and one sheet is really thick and sturdy. I find it to be a great quality and no need to look for a different type. And besides from it being awesome for pastels, I also noticed it is great for taking graphite. Multiple times I sketched my portraits with graphite before I jumped in with colors, and I was able to draw and erase with no problems. Now it can seem like erasing damages the paper, but honestly, when I started coloring, it all got covered up and there was nothing to be seen in the end. I really have no complaints about this paper and can absolutely recommend it. Another great item I discovered for myself are sponge pens. And I was looking for something like this when I first experimented with pastel pencils and blending them. You can blend them with your paper stumps, but once I tried these sponge pens, which have two tips, I never used blending stumps again. By the way, I like to use the harder white end. It spreads out the pigment heavenly. The one thing with these is you have to be careful not to use them for every color. Be aware you have to turn these to pick up a new pigment. I like to use one of these for the yellow to red range and the other one for the bluish tones. But if you keep this in mind, these are a great tool for working with pastels. There is one material I want to mention in the watercolor / gouache category, besides from certain brands and colors, which in my opinion are just subjective to choose, and that is 100% cotton paper. Paper is something I am not compromising on any longer, and especially for watercolor, I learned it is so important to use a high quality 100% cotton paper. You will see how good paper like this will be able to take whatever amount of water you want to use. It'll warp a bit when it's wet, but once the artwork dries, the paper goes back to being flat. Working with a highly chaotic medium like watercolor really needs a stable solid base, and this type of paper provides exactly this. My go-to favorite for now is Fabriano, but I'm still open for exploring others and I'll keep you updated on this. Next up, oil painting. And you can take everything here with a tiny grain of salt because I just started with oil painting this year, but there are a few tools which made my learning experience easier, and one of them is a gray glass palette. Easy to clean and great at helping you judging colors and values. I would definitely never mix my paint on a white surface, as this gray middle tone just gives you more information to work with and you have a better understanding of light colors. I know many also like to use brown wooden palettes, but I personally like the neutral gray, and if you don't want to buy one, you can also easily make it yourself by combining a piece of glass with a gray sheet of paper or alternatively a color of your choice. Next is a tool you might have seen a lot already, but by now it really proved its worth to me. It's a malt stick, and this is just a great material if you are someone who needs to rest their hand on something, which I am that someone. And that's it, there's basically nothing more to it, just a useful help while painting. Not necessary, but gives you a lot of support. I don't think the quality of a malt stick really matters, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just something to rest your arm or hand on. Getting into oil painting, I had to plan even the prepping stage. I'm talking about priming, specifically acrylic gesso. So far, I've only tried out 2 different types. One is from Golden, and it has a thicker consistency, which you can of course dilute with water. But for me and what I want, which is to preserve the canvas texture as much as possible, I found the one by Liquitex much easier to use. It already comes with a runny consistency, which you can spread out nicely, and it also means it has a quick drying time around 1 hour. I also like that you can just squeeze it out and don't have to take a spatula. I am happy with the quality, and it lets me apply nice thin layers of gesso without much hassle. Another item in my oil painting arsenal are fluffy mop brushes. Okay, about brushes, I've heard so many times the type of brush doesn't matter, only the size, because it's more about coverage. I could not disagree more. There are so many types of brushes and it highly depends on your preference. But one thing I can recommend if you do blend your paint like I do, and that is fluffy, voluminous brushes. They work so great for blending, I do not want to miss them anymore in my go-to bag. And there are different types. I have these stiff ones which are good for spreading and scrubbing paint, and there are more flexible, fluffier ones which work great at blending with low pressure. Can definitely recommend getting this type of brush. Okay, leaving different mediums behind, I want to show you some of my favorite general tools I use all the time and never thought they make such a big difference. Number 1, a table easel. Now, of course, when you're painting, a lot of you will want a real standing easel, but before I got more into painting, I never knew using a table easel will change this much for me. If you don't use one, you're probably hunched over your drawing like Gollum, just like I was. And I never realized the massive drawbacks. Well, first of all, it's not a good posture. Your back will hurt even more than it does already. And secondly, your view towards the artwork will be distorted. When you put your drawing or painting on a table easel, your eyes have a straight vision onto your artwork. You can adjust the angle and easily step back to see what you did. I always use a table easel when I draw, unless the recording with a camera requires the drawing to be flat on the table. It is so much healthier for my body and an overall improvement for my art making process. These next 2 items are quite small and innocent, but they did have quite an impact and I wanted to mention them. A drawing glove. You might know or see digital artists drawing with these gloves to not smear the sweat of their hands on the screen. Well, the same thing applies for paper. While, yeah, paper won't heat up and make you sweat, you can leave your skin oils on the paper, which messes up your graphite drawings. It's also good for preventing smudging, and I can't believe I didn't get one of these earlier. I have this one for just one finger to not have this weird feeling of drawing with a full glove. So there are options, and I can definitely recommend considering it to not smudge and mess up your paper. Alternatively, you can use a piece of transparent paper, which is something I also do from time to time. Last item on the list, and you might not have expected this, but it's soft tape. I think a lot of artists use tape to secure their paper onto a surface or to have nice clean edges. Well, I think there's nothing more annoying than to peel off that tape and rip some of the paper along with it. And it did happen to me before, until I learned to value high quality materials, which include tape. So I found the perfect tape, which is called soft tape by Holbein. It's like washi tape, but you have a much higher range of sizes and wideness. Water resistant, peels off perfect every time, no issues, none at all. I will always choose this over other painting tapes. So I hope you can find some inspiration in this video and are going to try out some of the mentioned materials. Let us know what your favorite materials are, and I'm excited to see how this inventory changes over time. I'll make sure to keep you updated. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.